invocation and the pledge, please. Lord, we come to you this morning, and we're so thankful that you've given us another day in paradise. Give us guidance and wisdom today as we make decisions that affect not only the citizens of South Walton County, but also the visitors that come here. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. This is a special Walton County Tourist Development Council meeting, and it's to update and request recommendation to the BCC for a new TDC facility on Highway 331 South and potential purchase of related properties. Mr. Tusa? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll get it a little closer. Hold on a minute, Jay. I forgot to take a roll call. Pam? Here. Gary? Here, sir. Tim?
Here.
Tony?
Here.
Richard Feldman's here. Mark?
Present?
Matt?
Here.
Jim?
I'm here, thank you.
We have a quorum for the record. Sorry for that little delay there.
No worries.
Mr. Tusa, please
All
feel
right,
free
well,
to go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you,
Can you hear
Councilman.
me okay?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, these microphones are, I think they boosted them up a little bit. Can y'all hear me okay with this?
Pull yours a little closer.
Tape. Oh, here we go. Yeah. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
All right. Testing. Okay. I think you need to talk like really close to these microphones. Anyway, so thank you. And as the chair mentioned, the purpose of this meeting this morning is to discuss not just one site for a potential new visitor center and offices for the TDC, but two sites. At the BCC meeting on Tuesday, Commissioner Chapman instructed me to bring another option to the council for consideration, and that is the property just right here to the north of the annex, in between the annex and the Air Force microwave tower. So we'll be going over both these today, and what we'll do is we can just kind of give you a little overview. So there's a map right there of the area. You can kind of see the corridor 331 down from the bay to Highway 98, and those two red circles there represent the two sites. So let's see where my notes are real quick on this. Yes, okay. So we'll jump into this first site. This is just right here across the street from the annex. This is, you can see on the little rendering there, the site plan, the Air Force property. That's where the transmitter, the microwave tower, sits now. So we did find out in, I guess, over the past few weeks that the Air Force does own the property in which that site, the transmitter, the building, and the tower sit. So there was some confusion about that. The property appraiser's website had it as being owned by Walton County. And as you can kind of see, there's some plans there from the past when they were developing the governmental complex that they, in fact, thought that it was owned by the county. So you can see underneath there, they have 4 buildings laid out on that site that overlays onto the Air Force property. So that is not correct. It is, in fact, owned by the Air Force. So that impacts that area there and what future use is for the county, whether it's the county using it for their purposes or the TDC using it for our purposes. So that kind of impacts what we're able to do on that site. There is an area of concern, I think, with a guy wire coming down off of that tower. You can kind of see it in your packets. It comes about 75 feet onto the property, and the property is about, it depends on how you look at it. In the front section, it's a little wider. It's about 240 feet wide, and then in the back part of the property, it's about 215 feet wide. So the area where it's 240 feet wide up towards the front, if we were to look at this property, we'd have about 75 feet with that guy wire that we'd have to deal with, either for building around it with a building or a parking lot. So that's something I think we need to think about. Also for this site, another area of concern is the height of the tower. I wasn't even aware of this, and I talked to Mac, but there's apparently a fall zone for towers. And so I'm not sure how that would impact this site for us to build a facility there, or even the county to build something there in the future. So I think that's something that we need to consider. And then also if people coming into the complex would have to turn onto Coastal Center Boulevard versus turning directly off of 331. There's a turning lane there, and we would not be able to do a driveway cut off of the turning lane. So that might impact us a little bit as well. So that's kind of that property. If there's any questions, any discussion, we can certainly talk about that. If not, then we can talk about the other one. Maybe we can talk about pros and cons of both sites together if you'd like to do that. But however y'all want to do it.
Jay, I think it's also worth mentioning that where those guy wires come down on the property, there's a corner of that property that is totally unusable. Is that a correct statement?
I think it would be, because it's 75 in, and I don't know how many feet off it is from the property line to the guy wire, but I don't know how you would build, a building around that. I mean, maybe put parking there, but
I think from the edge of the property going westward, there's a little out parcel there that prevents us from using that whole corner. Is that correct? On the blueprints that we just looked at?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. I mean, I'm not an architect or an engineer, but I would just think, looking at that in the space that's there, I think it would be challenged to do something with that space.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
I had a question. Obviously, these other two red dots up here, circles, are those the...
Those are the guy wires on the backside, correct.
So that was just for showing.
They were just for showing where the guy wires are, correct.
I think it's a great idea to look at this. But it would definitely, you need your building up closer to the road. That's what's important, because
Right.
your visitor center is gonna be right there. That's where you're
Right.
kind of like a retail center in some cases. And then you have your offices and whatnot. That would cut out a substantial bit of it. And you do either parking, or you do a heck of a lot of landscaping if you have to do that. Kind of hide that.
Yeah.
But then again, you mentioned the height of the tower
Yeah.
and a fall zone. That's something to definitely
Yeah.
consider.
Well, then let me just show you a couple of photographs. Okay, so this is the other side of the governmental complex, future plans. You can see the annex there in the bottom right-hand corner, and then the chamber building is over in the bottom left-hand corner. So on the opposite side of that parking lot towards the west, there are plans to add 2 additional buildings and then some 2 parking pads as well to accompany those buildings. So just wanted to put this in context of what the future of the governmental complex here can look like. And then real quick, here are some photos that I took yesterday of the site. So this is from across the street. This is on facing 331. You can kind of see the empty parcel there, and in the tower, and the building related to the tower there. This is from the side. This is taken from Coastal Center Boulevard, looking towards the north at the Air Force property. So just kind of want to put that in some context for you so you can see that. And then that's just the deed for the property, so you can see that we were able to secure that from the Air Force. St. Joe sold that to the Air Force in 1955.
One of the things that concerns me is,
You're going to talk close to it.
one of the things that concerns me is, the county has always assumed that there would be 4 buildings over there. They assume they own the Air Force property, but reading this deed shows that they do not own it. So that cuts the expansion of the county buildings down from 4 to 2. So a concern of mine would be if we built something and the county came in later, and it may be 10, 15 years later, they may say, look, I'm sorry, we need this, y'all gonna have to find somewhere else. I'd like to use it from the sense that it would save us money, but we also have to look at the practical side of it. And I'm just not sure how it would work, to be honest with you. And I'm not an engineer or an architect either, but
I think for me personally, the point of this is we're in the tourist business, and the point of this is when you're moving your operations in any business, you want to better your position. And regardless of where we move, it's going to cost us money. It's something we're going to have to be comfortable with one way or the other. And looking at the way development is going here and land use, and the factor is we'll never own the property. And for the future, it's a good investment when you're trying to better your position to try to get in a better financial position. Even though it's going to cost money, it will put us in a better financial position to own the property.
I'd also like to make a comment, Jay, if I could. Being geographically or physically this close to the government buildings, I don't have a problem with that, but I do have an issue with the TDC being an identity. And when it's grouped together, and I don't know what the county would say. I don't know that Tony would have the answer to this, but they may say, well, you can have the land, but we want you to use the same architecture we used, as an example.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, we're part of this big complex, and we don't have this TDC identity.
Right.
Two of the reasons that we have to move, obviously, is one is you're out of room.
Right.
The second thing is that when they widened 331 to 4 lanes, you can't get to the visitor center. And your numbers reflect that over the years that the Welcome Center's revenue and visitation has dropped dramatically. My feeling is that the further north we can get, the closer we can get to that bridge as a separate identity, I think we will tend to be a more attractive, easier to find with the proper signage and everything. And we're not going to be jumbled up with inside of what I would call the government complex, but we will have a sole identity, a sole destination with the right signage and everything. I think the closer we can get to the 331 bridge and further away from 331 98, where all the traffic congestion is anyway, it seems to me like that would be a viable option, and something to consider is to get away from 331 to 98, not get involved in the complex or become what looks like part of the county offices, and get as close to the bridge as we can to deflect some of that traffic, so people will stop.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you completely, and I was trying to stay focused on that one piece, but we're opening it up a little more now to the
Yeah.
other stuff.
can go on
We
to it.
we do need a first-class facility. Well, go back to the aerial shot of the bridge with the 2 circles on it. I mean, that is, if you look at it, been here for a long time, that's a beautiful strip of land. That is the entrance to the county. Besides the bay and the other restaurant when you come over the bridge, this is really going to be the first thing you see entering the county. And it really, again, in trying to better our position and looking not just in the short-term needs, but in the long-term needs of the county, from beach services and all of that stuff. This is the first thing that people are going to see when they come into our county.
And if I might, just real quick, let me just interject, just so we're all clear what we're talking about at this point, because we've changed a little bit from what was presented in the past. Originally, we talked about purchasing all 3 of the properties over by the Sandcastles building. So you can kind of see right here. And so the owner of the plumbing building has taken their property off the market. There was a death in their family, and they are going through some estate, settling the estate right now for the family. And so they pulled that off the market. I spoke to the real estate agent yesterday, and I was told that there still might be some interest in moving forward with us, but there probably still wouldn't be a whole lot of negotiation on the price. And you may recall they were asking $950 for that, and I don't want to talk specifics with appraisals, but the appraisals we received, if you took a look at those, they were substantially less than that. So I don't know if we are going to get where we need to be to purchase that, and quite honestly, I don't think we need it. Originally, we were talking about putting all of TDC together, and we've done some homework, and we've found that we can extend our lease, where Brian's operation is now over on 83, up to 30 years. And we have also had a few conversations with some commissioners about getting a little bit more land from D5 lot. And I think if we can do both those things, then beach operations can stay where it is, and that won't impact our needs for a TDC facility for the whole group of us, if you will. So I think with me saying that, this would work from a perspective of just buying the 2 parcels for this site. And from a land standpoint, this is about 2.5 acres when you remove the wetlands, and the other piece of property over by the annex, right across the street, is about 2.5 acres. So they're both right about the same size.
So to summarize this, we've got a location close to 331. There's not a whole lot more land that's gonna be able to be bought there, and real estate is, I know and you know,
Yeah.
is hotter than a firecracker right
It
now.
is.
So we got to grab what we can. And on the other side, the east side of that 331 is mainly state forest, if I recollect correctly. So there's not a whole lot on that side to purchase. So we're kind of in a, you kind of like, you need to find something soon before it's gone. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the price will go up again.
Also,
And then you have, so where we are now, we have Highway 98.
That's the right side of the road, too.
Yeah,
That's what I
that's the right side of the road, yeah.
I
coming
was
in.
gonna say-
Literally.
Yeah.
People come to a center,
won't come
coming
down.
in, not
Right,
leaving.
yeah, and then if they want to get something else on the way out, they can. Then you got 98, okay, we know that they're moving up the construction, the expansion of Highway 98 by 3 years. So within the next 5 years, you're gonna see some construction going on. Whether they put an overpass or something around the center or not, they're gonna take away some land of that facility. So somebody's gonna have to move. And with all the construction on 98, you're gonna have a mess for people to come in and out. So that's gonna create another, kind of like a little quandary like we have right now in a way. So the quicker we can find something and get in there and have the least amount the minimal effect
Yeah.
of people coming in, is what we need.
Jay, could you clarify something on the Humphrey appraisal? On their written statement on the first page, close to the bottom, it says extraordinary assumption, a jurisdictional wetland permitting assessment prepared by, et cetera, et cetera. Can you kind of clear that up for us?
Are you talking about the sandcastles piece?
Yes, I am.
Yes, so what that is we are able to mitigate the wetlands. So you kind of see in the back portion of the parcel there, those are all wetlands back there. So we are, because they're jurisdictional wetlands, we can utilize those. We'd have to mitigate the wetlands, but we can use those. You can kind of see here, this is very rough. I did this, and like I prefaced before, I am not an architect, not an engineer, but we could use the current building that's there, add another building kind of down the side of there, and maybe create like a little plaza behind the building, and then use the regional piece for parking. And based on that, we really shouldn't impact those wetlands much at all. Maybe on the regional piece is a little piece, that's why I have potential parking there, because maybe if we need to mitigate some wetlands, it would just be that area there. But on the sandcastles piece, we probably won't have to mitigate any wetlands.
If I look at that, the portion that is non-porous in that photograph of
Yeah.
the sandcastle complex and where the vegetation begins, is that where the wetlands
It
start?
is. You can see where it kind of gets a little bit darker with the
Right.
trees. Yeah.
Okay. And if we were to have to mitigate that, at what ratio, do you know?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay.
Jay, do you know what the current developable acreage is today without having to mitigate anything?
Those 2 parcels combined, it's 2.5 acres. We're losing about 1 acre with the wetlands. And we can mitigate that, so it could even be more. I mean, I don't think we'd probably have to mitigate maybe another ½ acre out of that. So I was thinking that if we do this and we need to mitigate the area for parking, we can get started on the building to save time, get moving, and then while we're mitigating the wetlands for the parking area, because parking's quick. I mean, that doesn't take a whole lot of time to develop that. So as we're building the building and doing everything we need to do there, then we can work through the mitigation process for the parking lot. And even if not, there's still sufficient parking there. I did a very rough sketch, literally copying one parking lot and sticking it on the space. And I mean, by my estimation, I think we could probably get a good 60, 75 spots in there. So, and right now we have, I think, 32 where we are. So, I mean, we're more than doubling our parking,
And what's the current acreage of the tract where you exist today?
about 1 acre.
1 acre.
Do you foresee this facility, if we were to move forward with it, do you foresee us ever growing out of it, or is this going to handle the TDC's needs for a long
I think
time to
I think it
come?
would handle it for a very long time. I mean, we've been in our building for 25 years, so I think that this is definitely something that could last us for 25, 30 years. We've done some calculations with staff to figure out what we need space-wise. Right now, we have 6,900 square feet, and we think we need probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 14,000 square feet. So quite a bit more space. But we have lots of extra room for future expansion of staff. So, and that's something obviously you need, because we don't want to build a building in 5 years from now, say, whoops, we need more room, what do we do?
You alluded to utilizing the building somewhat that's there now.
Yes.
Would that be for the offices and then expand that?
Um,
Or is that for-
We can't really expand that building because it's a metal frame building, so we can't add to it. We can just kind of keep that as it is. So with that facing the road, I would use that for the visitor center. And to what extent, you know, right now it's a 2-story building, but maybe we could do something really cool where it's a 2-story visitor center, where when you walk in, it's just really impressive. And then we could do office building kind of on the side. We could do a ground floor conference room where we could utilize that for these meetings, our committee meetings. Even the county could use it for their meetings. And we'd have ample parking, obviously, to accommodate that. I mean, right now, that's part of the reason why we have our meetings here now, is we don't have parking at the facility we're in.
I think your point's well taken, and if somebody in the council disagrees, I had said earlier, room is one thing, the welcome center is the other. I think that when we look at, in the future, if we go forward with this and the county approves it, the welcome center is really going to have to be the focal point. And the most, it's going to have to make people want to turn in. It's going to have to be that
Sense of right,
attractive.
yeah.
Yep. So,
And you can see the photo of the current Sandcastles building on that property. So it's 5,600 square feet, I think. I think it's 45 by 70 is the footprint of the building. So, like I said, we could perhaps use the bottom floor for a visitor center, restrooms, that type of stuff, upper floors, offices, or depending on what we ultimately want to do, we could use that whole thing for a visitor center and build another building. We would connect the buildings. I mean, it would look like one, complex, one building. Because I would reskin that, have it reflect the South Walton brand. But reskinning a building is relatively inexpensive.
I think
Utilizing what's there from a foundation and framing standpoint, I think is important. It can save us some dollars.
well, I think that's something we need to take in consideration. We're buying a piece of property that already has a building on it, as opposed to starting brand new with, water, sewer. I mean, you already have a standing building with utilities in place, power in place, everything.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Any other comments from the council, or Jay, are you complete?
Jay, any reason to believe, has there been any kind of research done on our ability to develop the parcel to the south of where the building sits? There's nothing that would indicate that we'd have any restrictions there. I mean, that's-
For,
The zoning, works for us.
it does.
It does, okay.
Yeah, they did, the county did a land use report on it, and actually, it works as it's village mixed use, and so, but we'd actually reclassify it when we purchased it to the government.
I'll make a motion that we move this forward to the BCC approval for purchase of these 2 parcels.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Is it appropriate now for public comment?
Yeah, Lisa?
Any public comment is welcome at this point from anyone in the audience. There being none, we have a motion on the floor and a second to make a recommendation to the BCC to pursue the purchase of the 2 parcels, the Sandcastle building and the regional utilities lot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thank you very much, and I will certainly be providing updates as we move along. I'll bring this back to the BCC for the next meeting.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Second.
I can't get it out of my mouth fast enough.
Good to see you, Mark. All right.
All right. Good job.
All right. It is good, yeah. Getting it at about half a million an acre on average. Yeah.
The increased retail sales alone.
I know, it's gonna would cover,
Great.
yeah, nice little return. That's really good job.
All right.
Good presentation. Yeah.
Monday night.
Yeah, you have a good weekend. Glad you're back, shaking hands here.
Tony, good to see you. All right, take care.
Gary, as well, my friend, for all the right reasons, Well, we can just speak goodbye now. Nice to see you too. Thank you.
Bye, Mario. Good to see you. Have a good weekend.
Good weekend. Oh, yeah, you going over?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going over tonight. We're gonna stay the weekend.
Yeah.